Live. I only do live. That's what I do, Derek. Hey, this is Derek again of LPE Performance, and this is Upland, Claremont.
This is right where Upland and Claremont meet one another on Monte Vista and Foothill.
Perfect, perfect. We're here for episode 5. I had to check because I don't have to keep my head all the time. We're here to talk about the torso. This is your lower hill. We can go over what that is and what's going on. The biggest thing right now is people want to get back in shape, correct? Yes? Okay. And a lot of it is, it's right about here, is that I have these problems with the pandemic poundage, trying to get that back in shape, back to where we want to be to look good and feel good. My biggest thing is feel good. I don't want to have to get out of a chair and go, what's wrong with my back, what's wrong with my torso, what's wrong with my abdominals, how do I pull a muscle? Okay? These are things we use every day unless we're lying down. Even when we're lying down, trying to get out of the bed, getting out of a chair, standing up, moving around, carrying something, we use these muscles all the time. They're postural muscles. They work unconsciously. You don't think about them. So Derek, walk me through your outline. What's the plan today? What's going on?
Yeah, for sure. So like Tony said, I would like to kind of talk with everybody a little bit about the torso, because in our general population it's referred to as the core. Okay. Yep. And so, I'm okay with that. A lot of people will refer to it as the lumbopelvic region, whatever. But all it is kind of the grouping of the muscles that we have from, let's say, kind of the upper portion of your quadriceps there, where the quadriceps and the hips kind of meet one another, and then works its way up into your lower abdominal area, upper abdominal area, and kind of into more the middle of the back, which is referred to as the thoracic cavity. So there's about 12 vertebrae that comprise that cavity, and it works its way up through the lumbar. I'm going to say, in my opinion, into that thoracic cavity there. Okay?
Agreed.
And so these are what I wanted to do for everybody was just go over the muscles that are in this section of our body, because they are extremely valuable on 3 different standpoints. So one is, it's very valuable in general fitness people who enjoy exercise, or maybe you don't enjoy it, but it's beneficial for your life, to keep this area of your body healthy. And there is some strength that I believe that for the general fitness client that they need to have that's adequate. And I really enjoy comprising the personal programs that these people have, because the torso allows for a great ability to progress a person's body through different standpoints, different muscle functions, a lot of different tools you can use to play with. So it keeps training interesting, fun, and like I said, progressive as well. Yes. So for the athlete, it's an essential. You should be continually progressing the muscles of your torso through all muscle functions in every way possible to the greatest of your ability, and continue to progress, especially in your ability to harness energy within this part of your body, so that when your body does transfer energy during athletic movements, it does so through this section optimally. I did describe this in a YouTube post that I'm going to put out earlier here when I talk about the parallettes, about how when an athlete transfers energy through his chain of movements, whatever it is, let's say it's a throw like for a pitcher or something like that, this is the area of the body that it's going to have to travel through this area of the body to eventually get out to the hand or to the apparatus or whatever it is that they're attaching their hand to, like a ball or a bat or a racket, whatever that may be. And you definitely don't want any energy to leak out of this part of your body, because any energy that you've used all this time strength training your legs, developing the power of a capacity of the lower body to produce all this energy, it's going to have to shoot it up through the body. Okay, and so if you're weak in here, all that work, you're not going to optimize all that work that you've done. So there's essential recruitments you need to get from your brain with your muscles. I'll talk about those today. There's also essential movements that need to be done for both general fitness and the athlete. And I want to talk about those as well, Doc, and give some demonstrations to you guys of some cool things you can do to help you out in those areas. And I'd like to give you guys some different levels. So this will be kind of like a beginning, intermediate, and somewhat of an advanced exercise, so that maybe whoever's watching this, you guys can take that and apply it to your own routine. After seeing this, I really encourage everybody, if you'd like to contact me personally, to do that, because maybe the exercises I gave you were too difficult or not difficult enough. And I train professional athletes at the major league level and have worked with Olympians as well. So it's like, I have had to develop exercises to train people of that ability level. And a lot of times as a strength conditioning coach, you got to get creative with that. So I'd love to share that with whoever's interested in that.
And my biggest thing, as we talked about before in our previous episodes, is when you see a trainer, someone like Derek, that actually knows the science behind that, the biomechanics, how things move, how things work, depends on what your body type is, depends on what your injuries are, depends on who you are as a person, your life. He can customize a routine that will help you efficiently, saving time and even just trial and error, even hurting yourself. That point, that training program he's going to assess and figure out for you allows you to get things done the way you want it. You want to look and feel in a short period of time, and again without injury. So that's why I always recommend coming and seeing Derek. At that point, hey Derek, I have these questions, can I come in and spend 15 minutes with you? At that point, that saves you so much headache of going to YouTube video, this trainer, this, trying to at the gym and go, now I've pulled a muscle. Now what do I do? And to see me, which is fine, I'd rather you not get injured. That point, that's why I want Derek to walk you through different routine, that point, see where things are. And we're going to walk through here, but from your example, okay, if I'm having problems, now does it interest you to find an assessment, get an assessment done, and figure out a routine that's going to help you? So Derek, let's move on to the next step.
Okay, right on. So what I think we'll talk about here just real briefly, I'm not going to go into great detail about the hips, but we're going to go into the hips a little bit. Then I want to talk about the pelvis, specific ways that you need to strength train the muscles that attach to it, and the various functions that they have when we call upon them to move our bones and stuff like that. Then I want to talk about specifically, there's two ways that I think it's very valuable to move your pelvis outside of stabilization or isometric contractions. I'll talk a little bit about that. And then we're going to talk from there about the spine and how I believe that the spine should be trained. I'll go into a little bit more detail on that, and I think that'll be real beneficial to everybody that's watching. Yeah.
Good, Derek. Let's get started.
Okay, cool. So let's talk. We want to set that up.
Okay, we'll move over here, that location over there.
Want to come over here?
Yep, yeah, wherever you think.
This is fine right here. This is where I do a lot of the movements.
That'll work. Let's get you set up and see. All right.
All right, so we good there?
You're good there?
Okay, for sure. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the hips. And again, I'm going to be real general. So if you're a physical therapist watching this, or let's say you're a personal trainer, strength conditioning coach, or whatever, if you want greater detail on this kind of stuff, go ahead and contact me or anything like that. But let's go general into the hip. So let's talk a little bit about flexibility of the hip, okay? So let's just kind of talk about making sure that your hips extend well. Because of our culture and how everything is very electronic, there's a lot of sitting in our culture, okay? So accountants, computer people, all those, I deal with them all of the time. They need to get active, so they're a regular client. Business people, stuff like that. A lot because of the position that we sit in, where the knees are up and we're in like this flexed position here of the hip. These muscles tend to get a little bit kind of chronically shortened. Okay, and so what I mean by that is that they were created in a way that they are supposed to have a range of motion within this joint to allow us to move in a way that's efficient for us. Okay, when your muscles get tight in this area, your movement efficiency, it decreases, your risk for injury increases, and then the overuse of muscles also, because of the connectiveness or synergism of our body with each other in the different segments, is also affected in a negative way. So you really want to make sure, Anthony, that these muscles are. So let's give, here's a good hip extending exercise. So the flexing muscle of the hip that pulls the femur upward, the hip complex, the psoas, whatever you want to call it, okay? There's quite a few muscles in here. I mean, there's 6 muscles that rotate the femur externally alone.
Yeah. Well, the word I used by medical term is called plethora. It's a plethora of ligaments, muscles, tendons, fascia that control the hip range of motion. Yeah. So why not work them all with one exercise, correct?
Yeah, that's a real great way to put it. So let's talk a little bit about extension, okay? So when you extend the hip, I'm sure everybody from the time we were in elementary school, physical education class, we all know how to do this guy right here, right? Okay. But there's a way to optimize this stretch. Because of the way the muscles are connected to our pelvis, there's certain things that you can do with your mind to position the pelvis to achieve a greater stretch through this area of the hip. So one of the ways that I teach it is you want to get the body in this position where you have the left hand on the lumbar like this, and the right hand would be over your navel. And you can see, if I get a good side view, when you're in this position, if I take my pelvis and I tilt it like this, from being in here, I don't know, can they see that?
Let me go one more.
Can they see? So I want to see you're going to be in here like this.
Let me go back. Let me give the back view. There we go. There we go.
Is this better?
Yeah, it's better.
Okay, so you can see how the pelvis gets tilted like that.
Yep.
Okay, so you want to hold that, and then you want to kind of bring the spine into some flexion like this.
Got it.
And then from there, you're going to kind of preset these muscles to be in, let's say, a semi-stretched position just from manipulating your bone position.
Got it.
So
Okay.
after that, then you can lean through the joints of your ankle and right knee and hip and lengthen that muscle to a greater degree, further
Good.
up to where let's say where it attaches up
Yep.
in there. Okay, Doc, like this. So again, you preset the pelvis and you give it the guy like this. To go one step further, okay, especially for athletes, what you want to do is take the femur and you need to internally rotate it like this.
Got it.
And what that does is that lengthens all the way up into here to the very, let's say to the maximum of your ability to lengthen this whole area.
Go about 190 degrees for me.
Like this?
Actually, I'll go toward the camera so it's the internal rotation of the hip from the front.
Okay, so you
There you go.
postured up,
Yep.
you preset, you flex, and you kind of spin a little bit.
So you bring that foot out then away from your body.
This
Got
one
it.
out to internally rotate this
Got it.
femur.
Okay, good.
And then from in here, you maintain this pelvic tilt and you get into it. What a lot of the clients do is they set the pelvis and then as they move, they go back into the arched position. So you want to maintain this neutral pelvic tilt while you move through the joints of the other leg to lengthen the joint of this leg here. Is that
Good.
cool with that, Anthony?
That sounds good to me.
Okay, yeah, so that's a real general. Now, the hip also, we kind of can move our bones in this way as well, okay? So you can take your femur and you can rotate it in this direction, or you can kind of internally rotate it in this direction. So there's a lot of different ones. Let me grab the stool real quick, Anthony.
He'll be right back.
Okay, so what I'll do is I'll explain.
Got it. Okay. Yeah.
I'll explain these exercises, let's say in a progressive order.
Good.
This one will be, the easiest one. This is where you would start if you're a desk person and you're tight and you're beginning an exercise program, okay? So what you need to do is get the leg up in here like this, and you can see how my bone kind of naturally rests in this position, okay?
Mm-hmm.
People who are very tight in this portion of their body, in the adductor group and in the inner portion of their hamstring, and in the hip area, they'll tend to not be able, they won't be relaxed like this, They'll be kind of more up in here like this. The gluteus will be tight as well, like this, So what you want to do is get the tibia fibia in a position over the femur of this leg so that the ankle, of this foot is on the outside of your quadriceps. I think is a good starting point for that, Anthony. And then you want to make sure that the under leg bone here is the ankle's directly underneath the knee because it will give you some added stability. And then from this position, what you want to start out doing is just kind of positioning your hands like this on your legs and just applying pressure down into the femur like this to get some external rotation of the femur and begin to kind of stretch out those muscles in there. The most common one known is the piriformis. Okay, if you have sciatica issues, this is a very important stretch for you to begin with. Okay, so we would do that. From there, I'm going to have to lay down for this one, Anthony.
I'll adjust the camera, sir. Good. You get the chair out of the way too. Hold on. Camera malfunction.
Oh, did it?
Here we go. We're good.
We good?
We're back on action. Got it. Okay.
Okay, guys. So here's the next step. Okay, let's say if you're at home, this is a really good variation for you. So same concept of positioning the leg in here like this. This position allows you to get greater push. So once you feel like the chair exercise is not, improving you anymore. This is the next place that you come. You want to start the knee position, let's say at 90 degrees in the knee and hip. This would be like your foundational position to start introducing this new range of motion to your hip area. And you can double arm push or single arm push, or if you want extra double arm. So that's only going to last for probably 2 weeks or so, and then you're going to want improvement. Okay.
Well, this way too, you're actually relaxing your back. Also, there's no vertical pressure.
Okay.
So at that point, your overall body that I'm seeing can actually get more of a stretch out of it. Correct?
Yeah, that's really good, Anthony. Yeah. So the pelvic position you can see here is neutral. I'm not arched or anything like that. I'm neutral, and I tried to lengthen my spine as long as I could before pushing on my muscle.
And make sure too, if you're at home, especially if you're a husband like myself, take your shoes off before you put your feet on the wall so you don't get in trouble. again for something else.
Yeah.
Got it. Just want to make sure. Okay.
So next step is you take your butt and you scoot it closer to the wall.
Ow.
Like that. Okay, so you increase the amount of flexion in the knee and hip joint. So what's that going to do is that's going to bring yourself into this position here. Now, if you put your body in this position and you come in here and your butt lifts up, that means that you're too close to the wall for your current range of motion ability. So you need to make sure that your ass is on the ground and that your back is on the ground also.
Got to watch the language because Facebook might ban me or something.
Sorry. So from here, you go ahead and you'll begin to push or double arm push like this as well. Okay. Now let's say if you're an athlete and you're at the field, a lot of coaches have big rubber bands that they use. You know. I use them in here with both fitness, athlete, and rehabilitative clients. But you know, these things all have a shelf life. So when they snap, I just cut them in length and I use them as stretching bands.
There you go.
If you want to go, sometimes I'll go to Home Depot, buy rope, cut it, burn the end of it, put some electrical tape on there, and those work great for a period of time as well.
Good.
But if you're at the field and you're an athlete, all you do is the same body position. You just position the rubber band over the arch of the foot like this, and you're going to get your body into this position. So the knee isn't going to need to be here for this because we're going to achieve the stretch by pulling the leg, by pulling on the foot to get this rotation in here, and then further pull the leg to get more up in there in the glute. Now, there's important to know, what I always teach all the clients is that the position of the tibia is going to pull on that femur a little bit, and you can grab more of the glute with the hip complex as well, Anthony. So what you want to learn is, depending on where you feel individually tight, this kind of would dictate how I, as their personal trainer, would prescribe a stretch that's for their specific needs. Good. But for you guys at home, you're just going to have to feel it out unless you want to call me, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you have about it. So you want to get yourself in here. If you take the femur and you pull it over and you bring the fibia down, and then you pull in it, it's going to get a little bit more on the outer part. Good. Okay, if you get in here and you pull, it kind of creeps its way and widens it around. If you close it a lot and you get in here, it kind of gets rid of the hip and it pretty much just pulls on your gluteus in there like that. Okay,
so your knee position, it will depend on if it's toward your body, outside, inside, which muscle you can actually work on.
Yeah, okay, that's correct, right. So let's go one more. Let's give a little bit of an extreme example, okay? This would be for like an athlete who is somewhat gifted in his flexibility, and these two exercises are more of just kind of maintenance for them. I'll give you two exercises that I believe are kind of progressive in their nature that would help improve most people. So let's start over here, Anthony, on my table, okay?
Let's do the table work.
Okay, so depending on your degree of kind of lower that a little, Anthony, so you can see my legs. Yeah. So depending on your degree, a little higher, Anthony.
Sure.
Of flexibility, okay? That's going to determine the height of the apparatus that you're going to position your leg on, okay? So this is, for me, and with the general population and the level of athletes that I work with, this is a good starting point for them, okay? And all you're going to do is you're going to position your body where you take your leg and you bring it down to as flat as a position as possible.
You go from this side.
Sure.
At that point, you get a better angle at it.
Okay, so once I get this leg flat, now I'll be straight up. Some people, when we progress to this, we have to work repetitions like this, and sometimes I have to manually assist them, and you have to be very careful when you do that. I don't recommend you do that unless you have some type of sports medicine certification, physical therapist, whatever, because you know there's a little bit of torque going on here in the knees. So
some type of liability, right?
You got to be very careful with that stuff. But anyways, you know, mine are healthy, so we're going to be in here like this. So I kind of position my hands on the table, and I get my spine to be vertical, and then I take my left leg, which is not the leg on the table, and I'll bend that. And that'll bring my leg into some pretty good rotation this way. And then I get a lot of hip glute turn on with that as well. And I can rep that out, hold it, whatever I want to do. If you want to get more extreme, you'd come up to a higher position. So this is, you know, for me, I'm 6 foot 3 inches tall. This is kind of right at just below the kind of the top of my pelvic area, okay? And so sometimes with clients, when they're in between these two positions, I'll just bring like a little step box over here to kind of bridge the gap for them. But what you want to try to do is you get up higher, so you can see how high my leg is in this original position here, and then and right now I'm receiving a stretch, but if I wanted to increase that, I would just do the same thing, and I would sink down. If I wanted to change the emphasis of the stretch, I'd move the tibia fibia. I could rotate my spine to grab more within the hip in there like that, whatever that individually you need. Okay?
Cool.
Now we got to do internal rotation, Anthony. I'm just going to show one for that. So we're going to come back over here.
Yep.
Okay, so for internal rotation, if you've ever had issues with your meniscus or anything like that, or you have kind of knee pain, I don't know if I'd really recommend that you do this one on your own. You're probably going to want to get your knee evaluated by a professional. I do an ortho eval of the knee for clients and stuff like that before doing this stretch. But generally speaking, you need to take the femur and you need to rotate it inward. And the simplest way to do that is you bring yourself in here like this, cross over, and you're going to pull the femur into this position like this.
Do that one more time,
Sure,
Derek, just a little slower.
Sure. In here.
I'm slow, I can't catch that. So start over from the very beginning.
So you be in this position, this is start position. Is this leg better, Anthony? Or?
Actually, the other one's fine. I don't know if I said it.
All right, so you cross the leg over, you guys, and then you use the weight of this leg and gravity to pull the femur into some rotation. Like this. Now, if I work with clients and they struggle in this area, I'll bring them up and I'll twist the femur myself. But you can't do that yourself, right?
No.
Okay, so this one is
safe either.
This is kind of it's not great, but it does something. Now you have to learn how to position your foot. The inner portion of your shoe, I always felt, needs to be just in the right spot to allow my hip to go. If I'm in here, it's more my lumbar. Okay,
got it.
But if you see in here how my lumbar doesn't move as much, my pelvis, and so I kind of use my muscles actively to hold my pelvis, and then I try to put pressure with this leg down like this to achieve this rotation of my femur internally.
So the ankle's not moving at all then, correct?
Well, it's kind of pronating.
Okay, little pronation, little intern, okay.
Yeah, pronating, because it's natural. It allows my bone to turn more. It's good for it. Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
All right.
Sounds good, Dirk.
Yeah, man. Okay. All right. So there's a little bit of flexibility. That's pretty. So let's talk now about the pelvis. So this is kind of where it kind of gets into where people have the most common issues with their torso. It really initiates in the pelvis, okay? And so we're going to talk a little bit about movement efficiency is how I thought I would describe this when we talk about the pelvis. And you want to make sure first that you're able to do some of these essential movements with your pelvis. Now, I'm not a great dancer, okay?
Neither.
But I'm going to show you some of these movements that a lot of dancers will probably be a lot better at than I am, okay? So,
I'll go more here, so
Sure.
we're good.
Okay, so let's show it from the side. So your pelvis, you guys, it moves. We're going to say 1, 2, 3, 4. We're going to say it moves, we'll say 5 because circles in both directions. Let's say 5. We got 5 movements in there.
Yep.
The first movement that we got is anterior tilt. I talk about this in the shoulder eval when I explain how the tilt of your pelvis affects, how the shoulder blade kind of can function, especially with the overhand throwing athlete. So with your pelvis, you want to make sure that you have a connectiveness with your muscles to be able to move your bones in the way that they were created to move. Okay? So it's important, you don't have to be some crazy fitness guy or a girl or a crazy athlete. This is the kind of stuff that you want to make sure that you do for as long as you live, I think, because this is an area of our body that we move through the most. And it's very important to maintain this type of essential movements like I described in the video with the pelvis. So we're going to talk a little bit about the pelvis. Now you want to make sure that the pelvis, I'm going to try to pull my shirt tight, that you can tilt it anteriorly. So it's kind of like you take the glutes and you kind of push them out there. But my pelvis is actually moving like this. So if I had water in my pelvis, I would tilt the water forward.
You switch from that angle so there's better lighting.
You want me to turn this way?
Yeah, either way. But yeah.
So a good tool that I use to do this with people, especially rotational athletes like pitchers, you know, baseball guys, stuff like that, golfers, is if you get on the stability ball, because the stability ball allows me to move, you know, any direction that I want to move on here. You know what I'm saying? A lot of the rehabilitative clients who have, you know, issues through their backs and necks, this is an essential for them. I make them do this regardless because it benefits them a great deal, I believe. So we want to get some pelvic movement anteriorly like this, which would mean forward and here. Okay, that's number one. Next, you got posterior tilting. So you need to take your pelvis as if there was water in it, and you need to tilt it and dump the water out backwards. So I'll kind of pull on my shirt a little bit, and you can see how my pelvis goes backwards, and a rounding occurs through my spine and neck when I do that, because there's a connectedness there between the pelvis and the spine. Okay? The next one we'll do is called, a lot of PTs, they'll refer to this as hip hiking. So you need the pelvis, again, the water analogy, that it needs to be in this position here, like this. Okay? So we want neutral pelvis, obviously. And then we're going to take our pelvis in here, and you can kind of see how my hand elevates when I do that, and you can kind of get in here, you know, and you just move your pelvis around like that. Okay, good. Very good. The ball, I think, is the best tool for this. Let's see. Next is circular movement. So we have to take our pelvis now, and we have to kind of put all of these movements together in a synergistic fashion, you know. So we want to kind of take the pelvis, and you're going to arch it, go into anterior tilt, then you're going to hip hike it to the right, still in anterior tilt, then you're just going to shift like this as I kind of circle it around and move over to this side, and then back into anterior tilt here. So I'll show it to you from the side.
So it's better to do this fast, slow, or what's a good pace?
Great question. So what you want to try to do is learn how to move your pelvis in those extreme ranges of motion that you did, let's say, when you performed these movements segmentally or isolatively, meaning this is the anterior tilt, this is the posterior tilt, this is the lateral hike, whatever you want to call that, okay? Now you're trying to feel your pelvis go through all those movements to the same degree of range of motion with a continuous flow of movement.
Good.
Okay,
good.
That's how I would describe that. Because what a lot of people do is they do this. They just do these little short ones, and it's like, no. You gotta go through this sucker, because if you want to have a connection with your muscles, especially if you're an athlete, and especially if you're the golfer, if you want to have, or pitcher, if you want to have an ability to maximize when energy comes through here and the strength capacity that these muscles have for you during that very important time of the movement, then you want to make sure that your ability to move this is through a range of motion that's optimal for you. And there are times, I believe, when clients need to improve this, and I've done kind of some wacky things where I'll tie rubber bands around them and I'll resist them in each one of these specific movements. So there'd be rubber bands pulling resistance this way, and I'll make them tilt their pelvis against the resistance. You know,
well, and a lot of it is when you're doing that, you're actually you're getting your brain to see that tension on the muscle and the ligament.
Yeah.
So now you're training your brain to know what normal range of motion should be.
Oh, that's a great point. Yeah.
You know, so your whole body is not only moving, but also retraining, relearning where your body should be, what normal range of motion should be. And then you can work on once your core, like you said, your torso is good, then everything else kind of falls in place.
Yeah, and that's kind of an extreme example, you guys. Like if I'm rehabbing, if I'm doing a rehabilitation work for somebody that's out of back surgery, right? And when you get them out of back surgery, you really got to push them kind of beyond where they're normally going to hang out. I would describe it as a daily life, let's say general fitness client. But like I've worked with some gymnasts and stuff like that, and there's times when they are on their hands and they're really basically suspending their whole body. Good. And so they have to be able to have such a great strength in this, because when they do into those gnarly positions where they kind of begin to balance themselves and they elevate the pelvic area over their shoulders or stuff like that, is that the stronger I can make them in this area, the better they become at that. It's easier, you know, for them. They can control themselves better and score higher, I guess.
So if you have one weakness in your muscle, in your any location in your body, your overall performance as an athlete gets thrown off, right?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. It messes with the movement sequence. So,
yeah, cool.
Okay, so there you go. Okay, guys, so that's movement efficiency. Okay, so from there now we're going to move into the first phase of strengthening the pelvic area, and we're going to focus on stability, let's say stability. Another way you can think of this would be like holding. The anatomical way we describe it is isometrically. All that means is that your brain is going to take your bones and it's going to hold them in a position and not move them. The muscle's not lengthening or shortening. It's kind of in this constant state of tension to stabilize the joint, whatever it is that we're doing.
Good.
Okay? Yeah. So, in regards to the pelvis, there's different ways that you need to position the body when you train it. Now, for general fitness, I do all of them with the clients because life requires all movement. Plus, it makes them stronger overall. It adds variety to their training. It makes their sessions more interesting. They're learning more about their body. It's very good for the client, especially those who are on long-term programs. Their training does not become monotonous. Okay, and that's very important with general fitness training because it can be very monotonous. So let's talk about the positions that you need to position the body in when doing this. First, let's talk about doing this when seated. Okay, so can we go over to the rubber band?
Of course. Go right over here. Should have pretty good lighting.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so we'll just use this double band here. So this is about, what do we got here? 50, 80 pounds of tension on here, okay? So this is going to be for a very active female who trains regularly in her strength training abilities. I would say for the general fitness man, and then kind of for your youth level athlete, maybe around 12 to 14 years old, something like that, okay? So what we need to do is you want to position yourself so that the tension is coming into the body, from a side position like this, you guys, okay? So the way these muscles work is you have to use your mind to kind of consciously turn them on to preset the pelvis in a position that you want it to be in order to receive the stimulus that you want, okay? So what that means is I need to take my pelvis, I need to pull it neutral, because when I do stabilization, what you want is to get as much of a neutral pelvic tilt as possible and then require the brain to hold it in that position, okay? So for general fitness people, being seated is a good way to learn how to do this, I think. This would be like a level 1 kind of exercise, so the tension would be less if you're learning this. So you take the pelvis, like I mentioned earlier, and you get it into the neutral tilt. So anterior is forward, posterior is backward, in between those two positions. Now the way your brain is going to recruit your muscles is like this. You need to hold these bands with the hand opposite of your body in relation to where the resistance is stemming from. So for me, since my right shoulder's here, I need to hold this with my left hand. Then I'm going to bring my right hand through and get a good grip on here with both of my hands. As soon as I bring this band tension to the middle of my body, the muscles that attach to my pelvis and spine area, they're going to tighten, okay? It was created to function like that. So what you have to do is you have to hold those muscles neutral. You see how when I do that, I rise up in my spine like this, and I become more in a chest out posture, okay? So when you get in here, they turn on. Depending on where you lack strength, your body's going to gravitate towards that area. So you need to fight it to keep it neutral. And then what you do is just getting in here for some clients is enough. And we do 5 seconds, 3 seconds to 10 seconds of holding. If you want to progress it from there, you would get a good wide solid base, recruit the muscles of the pelvis, and push out. Now you see how when I push this out, I maintain my alignment in a direct line, in and out. When you learn this, usually you're going to swim off the line and try to fight it and come back and stuff like that. And so as an individual, or if you're a trainer or whatever, you need to choose a band that's accommodating to your current strength ability. From there, you then move to an outward position, and then you hold this position out, and then you go up and down. Now, if I was positioned just right, you would see how I kind of stayed in the midline of my body. I may have swimmed out a little bit there, It's hard to do it perfect every time, but that would be your next step.
Derek, you're not perfect? What the heck?
So from here, you would then stand up the body, and you would perform the same exact thing from a standing position with that. Cool, Anthony?
Cool.
Okay.
Let's do the same thing. You want to keep your legs a certain way, left leg, right leg forward, doesn't matter the leg.
Okay, so Anthony asked about my legs. So what you want to make sure you do is I just like the feet to be parallel. Now when you get sport specific with movements, like sometimes I'll get pictures where they, can you raise that up a little
Sure, of
bit,
course.
Anthony?
Sure.
So sometimes if I'm working with an overhand throwing athlete, I work with a lot of pitchers. So if I'm working with a pitcher, I'll get him into, I'll kind of get him into maybe a couple different positions, like when he's in his loading position in here, and we'll work that. Then I might work him in the middle where during the movement he's drifting. I'll work him in here like that, and then I'll kind of work him out into this position, and then sometimes I'll work him when we're hips rotated, but shoulders closed. Because this is a key part in the throwing movement where energy needs to be held in. And there's a lot of skill there that I won't get into detail about throwing baseballs. But it's good to kind of work these movements, work the brain, the muscles in the movements that they are in a sequential pattern, but broken up into pieces. That's one of the key things I think that a lot of strength coaches don't do. You know, the more the study kinesiology over the last 15 years is that if you're not doing that as a professional, I don't think you're doing your job. Because you really need to analyze the movement and optimize how the athlete's body works within the movement. Learning skills and techniques during athletic movement is a whole nother thing. But as a strength coach, you need to do everything you can to at least put them in a position where their body can function for them and perform them as optimally as possible. And that's where the expertise comes in my line of work. So, yeah, cool, man. So let's move over here. Rotating back. Okay, so next would be, you're going to want to work the anterior portion of the body through pelvic stability, okay? So I'm going to talk a little bit about the most common exercise that our culture knows in general fitness, which is the plank. Okay, everybody's like, hey, you want to have strong core? Well, then you got to plank. You got these men on there doing crazy things. They're playing for like an hour. You don't need to do that kind of stuff. Okay?
You can if you want to be entertained.
No, man, you want like generals, man. I mean, man, a minute, okay, is enough. But I mean, most of the time, I don't take it beyond 30 seconds. It's more of the general function the brain has with the muscles and its connection to the bones. You know, extremism with these, I don't really feel is necessary or beneficial long term. Okay, so what we're going to do.
But it looks good, though, Derek. Looks good.
So we want to learn. A little bit about how the muscles work when you're in this position. So this is the anterior portion of our body. We're going to bring my body in what's referred to as a prone position, meaning face down. Okay. So I'm going to get myself down here. I won't go into too much detail, but here's what you want to know. You got to learn how to get your pelvis. And you have to learn in this position, the quadra, how to move your pelvis through at least anterior and posterior tilt. A lot of people know the E recap, okay? A lot of people know that, but they don't do it right. But you got to learn how to at least move your pelvis neutral when your spine is relatively neutral, kind of like I think mine would be right here. Okay.
I agree.
Okay, so we're going to get ourselves down into this position here. Now, when you're in the position, the first thing that you need to do is to try to get your belly button to get pulled up into your spine, and you're going to pull yourself up here. You can see how I can do it in two ways. One is I do what's called a draw in, and my pelvis just barely moves in there like that, and then I move my pelvis more, and then once you've achieved that, then you're going to elevate your pelvis up so that the pelvis and shoulders are level, and then we're going to go ahead and tighten the quadriceps to maintain this good alignment. Now once you're in this position, you want to push your chest away by activating your serratus anterior and moving your shoulder blades down the outside of your ribs and maintaining this kind of position. A lot of people sit in the plank like this, into the trapezius like that and pull the scapula together. You don't want to do that. I mean, it ain't like you're not benefiting from and turn on it here, but there's always the best way, I believe, to do everything when it comes to the core. Okay?
Yep.
So there you go. There's that one. Now, the next one we need to talk about.
How long do you want to hold that for?
Okay, so I would say that you recommend learning how to hold that for, I usually start clients out from anywhere from 5. Like I said, I work them up to 30 seconds.
Perfect.
There's so many variations. You know, I'll do a whole series on it, maybe with Doc sometime, about how to progress the plank. Man, I probably got like 15 ways just to progress that one position of plank from just the floor, balls, parallettes. Man, you know, you can get as crazy as you want with it, okay?
Yep.
So now we need to move to the side of your body because the spine moves like this. And so we need to make sure that the muscles that are in this box here are good at least holding it first before you want to try to move it through lateral flexion. So a good way to do this is, again, we'll use the traditional, the side plank for that, and I'll give another demo of this as well. So when you're learning to do the side plank or okay, whatever you want to call it, bridge, some people call it bridge. The best way to learn this is when your knees are bent. It makes it the easiest to perform, okay? So a lot of people do this, but their knees will be too in here, like this. You want to pull it so that there's somewhat of a line through the knee, hip, and shoulder, kind of into your ear, in there like that, okay? Now, this is what most people look like when they do the exercise. They come up in here like this, okay? And then you can see my shoulder, how it's up here.
What's wrong with that, Derek? That's how
okay. So the muscles in the trapezius and how they connect to the scapula, there's a benefit to the exercise that it brings to them from a postural, isometric, strength kind of way. It's very beneficial for the general fitness athlete, and it's essential for rehabilitation clients once the shoulder is in a state that it can handle this type of stress. Okay? So here's your cues to doing this. Number one, you want to kind of feel your pelvis again, going to a little bit of that neutral tilt. So you're going to have to pull it back in here like this. And then two, you do want to feel the right, the left, the top hip get elevated. And then you want to ensure that you are pushing your shoulder blade, what feels to be like down, or you're pushing your top portion of your shoulder, the little bone up here, the acromion bone, you're pushing it away from the earlobe to bring yourself into this strong position. Here's where most people miss out on the plank, is the left shoulder. They'll sag a little bit like this, but you got to use the muscles all the way in here to get this kind of this great alignment. Now, what you also want to do is you want to internally rotate the left shoulder just a little bit to maximize the recruitment you can receive from the muscles when the body is in that position.
Okay.
Like that. Okay, I think that's very beneficial.
Yeah, so you're basically that top shoulder over so you don't lean back, but you're actually not even leaning forward, just leaning straight.
It allows for your brain to recruit the surrounding muscle better, and thus you can maximize the benefit that you are going to receive from the exercise.
Great.
So I think it's really important to do that.
Good.
Okay.
I'm glad you do these exercises, not me. That's the best part.
Let's see what else I got on here, man.
Well, you had a few things on there.
Yeah. You know, I think that's pretty good, Doc, with those.
Yeah.
Let's talk about now how to strengthen specific movements to your pelvis. So we talked about different body positions to strengthen stability and your ability to really control yourself, okay? The next one is your ability to move your pelvis, okay? In this, we're going to only talk about two things today. One is going to be what's called posterior tilting, which means that you take your pelvis and you move it backwards to your bodies. And another one's going to be rotation of the pelvis. Now, rotation of the pelvis we're going to talk about today is going to occur in three positions, but we'll talk first about posterior tilting. The exercise I'm going to do is generally referred to as a reverse crunch, okay? So you're going to get yourself in a lying position here like this, and the hands in this position, your neck's flat. If you have neck pain or you have severe kyphosis, meaning that your spine is in this position and you can't get your neck to the ground, I still allow clients to do the exercise, but I give them a rolled up towel in the cervical area, and it allows their neck to kind of relax and it doesn't bring additional stress to them.
Good.
Okay, so what we do is we bring the body into this position. Now, I have a natural kind of exaggerated curvature in my low back. You know, I'm somewhat what they refer to being as lordotic. So
Any special at the same time, too.
I have to bring this pelvis into the flattened position before I fire my muscles to move my pelvis into the posterior position. Okay? There's two ways you can do that. You can preset it like I just did here, where I preset and then I perform the reverse crunch like this, or you can just do it naturally like that. The problem is a lot of times clients in the beginning, they don't do that efficiently enough, and they can receive some stress in there, and it causes some pain rather than working soreness. So I usually teach it the first way.
So you almost want to set your pelvis first. You're only moving at the hips, basically.
You set the pelvis, you pelvic tilt that, and then from there, you know, the obliques and stuff like that, they're going to fire with the hips to flex them and further move the pelvis into this posterior tilted position.
Perfect.
Generally with clients, I get them just to learn how to move the pelvis like this with no momentum. You see, like I'm not out in here firing through flexion of the knee into hip flexion.
Yeah.
You want to learn how to just control the muscle from in here like this first, and then from there I work on holding times where I have them hold for 5 seconds. From there you can be then to straighten the legs, and you can bring the body up, and then you can start playing around with your arms, and that increases difficulty and recruitment requirements of the torso also, okay? So that's a good a good place to start. The next one I mentioned is hip rotation. Now hip rotation is an essential movement. All clients have to do this. The first one we learned is how to do hip rotation from the supine position, which means face up. The first way you learn how to do this is from this position, you pull the toes and you just learn how to rotate your hips, then use the muscles of your torso that rotate them back over to this side, okay? From there, the feet are lifted up into this kind of position where the knees are flexed a lot. You rotate side to side. From there, you move into like a 90 degree, and the arms are brought out to the sides now because there's some greater stability that's required from the thoracic. When you begin to get to this level, what's important to remember is this, that you take the scapula and you squeeze it together. Okay, like this and a little bit downward when you're in that lying position, and that will bring further benefit to your body.
Shit. Hold on.
Oh, that's okay.
There you go.
Your camera came off.
Yep, there you go.
So that'll bring further benefit to your body, okay? From the 90 degree, then you go 3/4, you rotate, and then you go into this position in here, and you do achieve like a full, extended knee rotation position like that. After that, you begin to put additional loads into the lower extremity, like maybe a stability ball or a soft kind of medicine ball that's easy to squeeze between the knee or the ankle, and you basically start the progression all over again, like that, okay? The next way that you can rotate the pelvis is from what's called the prone position that I mentioned earlier. So I'll show a quick little exercise of this.
Okay.
Okay, so with this guy, the stability ball is a great tool for this. You can also do this in the water. Is a good way. Sometimes when I train clients at home out of their pools, you'll do stuff like this with them on the water when they hold it, the side of the pool or whatever, okay? So you want to bring the body into the position where the feet are elevated, and it feels like your pelvis is on the middle of the ball, and right now I feel like very comfortable and stable on the ball. You want to learn how to rotate the pelvis upward into this position, like this, and then return back and go to the other direction. What a lot of clients do in the beginning is they get their knees too far apart. You want to make sure the knees are close together. It allows the movement to be more efficient, kind of easier, to tell you the truth, okay? So here's a couple progressions to this movement. These are ones that I like to commonly do with clients, okay? The first one is when once you've rotated, the client's comfortable, then you want to kind of start moving the extremity away from what's called the center of mass. And so what you do is once you rotate up, you're going to kind of pull the body into this position here, like this. And I'll show you from the other side, in here, and you get in here, and you come back. So one more in there like that, okay? You learn how to have dynamic stability and recruit your muscles to do that with your body. The next one is you want to then flex the joints, and that does is create a surface area that's less stable and will require a greater amount of brain activity and strength from these muscles. That looks like this. You get into what's generally referred to as a knee tuck position here. And then once you're here, you're going to rotate in here, maintaining the knee tuck, and then bring your body up here and knee tuck back here. Okay? From there, you're going to combine all of them. And you're going to rotate straight leg into bent leg, turn and go back. And you're going to work this circular turn like that. I think those are 3 exercises that will challenge most of the viewers of this because it generally challenges a lot of the clients that I work with, really of all levels. I got some men and women I work with who they can work that circle no problem, and some high school guys, baseball guys, or the college guys that come in here, they struggle with that for a couple weeks, and then they got it, and we got to move on from there. Nice. So there's some good ones there. And then there's standing, okay? Standing hip rotation, a lot of times with athletes, is in med ball throwing. Now, in med ball throwing, I'm just going to give a demo with this big ball here inside the studio, okay? So, there's different ways that you progress med ball rotations. I won't go into detail about that. I'm going to give you, this is kind of really what I believe is like a third progression. And this is when you begin to learn how to use your lower body to generate rotational power into the hip and up into the torso. Okay, you have to teach this to all athletes, really regardless of their sport. It's kind of an essential athletic movement. I teach it to the general fitness client. because it adds, again, a lot of variety. It's fun, it's a challenge, it's a great heart racing exercise as well to maximize their caloric burn when training in the studio. So what you want to do is just kind of hold, we'll just use this ball, but like I said, most times medicine ball, right around belly button height, and here like this. And you want to learn how to kind of get yourself into an athletic base, like so, and you're going to rotate your shoulders. So you're going to kind of sit and rotate here at the same time. Then you got to learn how to use your legs to generate force down into the ground to begin extending the joints of the knee and hip, and then understanding how to use your mind to bring your body, your hip area, into rotation like that. So if I'm doing med ball throws, the first way you learn is face on. The movement is shorter. So you're in here and you're driving here, learning how to take the pelvis from this flexed position, the hip from the flexed position into the extended position, and continue using the glutes and hip rotators to rotate the hip internally, and then the ball will exit the hand like this with speed and stuff like that. Great exercise in there with that. So in regards to strengthening movements of the pelvis, that's areas that I would start with for sure. I think we're going to kind of run out of time today, Anthony, but maybe next time we can talk a little bit about the spine and how you work specifically with the spine through stability, extension, lateral flexion, anterior flexion, and then thoracic rotation.
Good.
So yeah, so that was a great shoot, Anthony. A lot of information for that.
And my biggest thing with Derek is, again, we walked through probably, I want to say at least maybe 7 or 8 exercises with different variations too. When we do this with Derek, these videos, again, this is episode 5, we're walking through how do we get someone to go from having problems in their abdominal areas, problems with back pain, leg pain, upper back pain, your whole core area, I call it the core, but he calls it the torso, that whole area controls your whole body to stay strong, to stay relaxed, and hopefully over time, look good, unlike mine presently. But at that point, we can get our body healthy and strong. I'm going to walk through with Derek too, in little clip videos too down the line, and use these videos, these exercises for my patients. At that point, they start to get looser, and then stronger, then better balance, so they know what their core feels like. When they get this done, I think, over time, as you do with your clients, they feel where their body is. You feel where things are. You know when your body's off a little bit, especially if you're an athlete, is that one little piece you drop affects your whole efficiency. Maybe like me, we're a golfer, so we go to the gym all the time too. At that point, if you're more efficient, you avoid injury. At that point, you enjoy what you do, it becomes a chore to you. It does not become a chore to you. All right, so Derek, anything else for your 5th show with me?
No, I just love being on the show. I really love giving away information to everybody. So for me, man, just hit me up. You can DM me, hit me through Facebook, through the website, like I always say, But I just like giving away the information, and just helping people out, learn more about it. It's one of the things I like most about my job. So I'm very thankful to be here, man, and I look forward to next time.
Keep doing well, my friend. Good deal. Thanks for being on the Quick and Spine Show, and we'll see you guys next time.
All right,
that's it. Good.